Hello, my friends. Hello, my life warriors, wherever you are in the world. I do hope you're having a good day. Yes, today's podcast, number 39, is with Natalie Cheung. She is a TED speaker slash motivational speaker. She is a civil engineer, podcaster, and yeah, award-winning volunteer. Today we talked about STEMs and basically her new podcast, Yellow Bee Pod, which is going to be launching very soon. So please sit back and enjoy the show. And yes, listen to this very motivational, inspirational young lady who is out to change the world for sure. Anyway, have a great day, my friends. Have a great day, my life warriors. And yes, thank you very much for your time today. Peace. Haha. Hello, my friends. Hello, my life warriors, wherever you are in the world. I hope you're having a good day. This is the Day In, Day Out podcast. This is episode 39. Today I have the immense pleasure to be speaking to Natalie Cheung. She is a TED speaker, podcaster, engineer. She has traveled to many a country around the world, and a motivational speaker. Rather than me sort of rabbiting on, Natalie, how are you?
Hello. Oh God, I don't know what happened, but we're back.
Excellent. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Are we starting the recording now?
Yes, we have. Yes.
Okay, please continue. And hopefully my Zoom call won't drop off again.
No, it's all cool. Thank you for coming on to the podcast today. Just want, reason why I got in contact with you is, yes, you are how can I say, a very motivational and busy beaver indeed.
Haven't heard that one before.
Well, what can I say? It's true. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about is the stuff you've been working with STEMs. There are many a person who doesn't know what STEMs is. Could you explain a little bit more detail?
Yeah, absolutely. So in my day job, I promote STEM. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and maths. So it's like it could be education, it could be industry, but those fields often get grouped together. And a big passion of mine, and what I do in my normal weekday job, is promote these subjects, particularly for young people. There's a lot of young people out there who don't think that they're good enough to study maths, or don't think that science is interesting, or they don't know what careers are available if they pursue those subjects, which is a real shame because there's a lot out there. But a big passion of mine is raising aspirations in young people, helping to link them with opportunities so they can, be their best selves.
Be their best selves. Liking that. And with regards to STEM, how did you get involved in this in the first place?
I guess that takes you back to when I was at university. I was a bit of a keynote when I was at school. I went to university and I studied civil engineering. So civil engineering comes under the STEM umbrella, under the E. When I was studying there, I volunteered for a group which was all about promoting engineering, in particular for female students. So we went to local schools, invited groups of teenage girls to come into the university, and we ran coding workshops with them using some little fun Lego robots. So that's how I got into it, and that's when I realized how little people knew about the opportunities there are at university, and in the engineering field in particular, especially among young women.
My God, wow. And with that, was that the organization called Robo Girls?
Yeah, that's right. So it's a student-led organization. I was a volunteer for them. It started in Australia, and they have a bunch of chapters across the UK. That's what we call them, chapters or student societies. And I led the one at the University of Manchester. Whew, that was quite a few years ago now, 2014. 14 maybe.
Yeah, it might. Hey, it's all part of the journey, and like, you know what I mean. If this is the thing what helped you get part of the spark to get on this, yeah, by all means, it's all important. It's all important, and like, yeah, I think if helping young people through a voluntary scheme, I don't know much about Robo Girls, but if you are doing that, it shows, yeah, great intent, and you know what I
Yeah.
mean.
Yeah, there's a huge amount of organisations that do work in this area, which is great because I think it's really important to reach all young people, actually. I don't know, what's your background? So if you cast your mind back to when you were at school,
Yeah.
what sort of interest did you have? What subjects did you like?
With regards to I have to throw my mind back quite some way. Like if it was, it's like, if it was school, I wouldn't say, with regards to like sort of STEM subjects, it wasn't so much that. It was a case of I didn't really sort of give much thought or go deeply into like, this is what I need to do for my future, laid it all out.
Yeah.
But I did sort of like bounce from one thing to another. I did do for a short period of time. I did take an interest in engineering. I did take an interest in electronics. But then I ended up, when I went to university, studied psychology and sociology of all things. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. So I can't say I was like, this is what I want to do for the rest, like for my rest of the day. I didn't have that calling, as you would say.
Yeah. Well, I think that the thing of having a calling or finding your passion at a very early age is somewhat unrealistic. And it's only in the last couple of years when I've joined the working world myself that I've realized that most people, their life doesn't follow plan A.
Mm.
And it's good to be flexible, good to be resilient, and to, roll with the punches and pick up opportunities as they come. Because the job I'm in now, for example, I had no idea this job existed when I was a student or even when I started working. But it's something I really, really enjoy doing at the moment.
I see. So how did you, like, if you didn't know it existed, how did you drift into the job you did right now? Like, how did you discover it, I should say?
I guess it was back at university again. So when I started volunteering with this group, I started getting in touch with other people who are also passionate about raising aspirations in young people, particularly around the subject of science and maths. And with my background in civil engineering, when I graduated, I actually went into the field. So I was just on a grad scheme, a very typical grad scheme at a ginormous corporate. And but during this time, I was still volunteering and using my skills and my free time as a way to sort of inspire young people.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized that there were actually people in this volunteer program, and that's the job that I do now.
Okay, great. So, so basically, volunteer, team leader, like Robo Girls, and like so. With all of that, how can I put it? Like, so what do you find? I don't know. With regards to the whole sort of realm of STEMs, like, what was the sort of things what really excite you about engineering currently? Ooh, hello.
Yep, I'm still here.
Yeah.
Well, there's a huge amount that engineering covers. So firstly, there are lots of different fields of engineering. So it could be something like civil engineering, which is what I was in, which is to do with the design, construction, and maintenance of things that everyone uses in the built environment. So like buildings, bridges, roads, dams, all things that maybe we would only notice if we didn't have them,
Uh-huh.
that we don't think about them enough, and sort of like pay respects to how much work goes into creating a new building or a new school or a bridge to help people get from A to B. There's also loads of other fields. So you mentioned electronics, that's a huge field, especially nowadays. It's coming up with like software engineering, links very closely with electronic, and probably the biggest one that I would say is mechanical engineering, which covers a whole range of different things, from huge engines, airplanes, wind turbines, to really, really tiny things as well. So it's very difficult to speak on like the engineering field as a whole, because basically everything in the world links back to engineering. Engineering intersects a whole range of different sectors, including transport, sports, music, construction, and more.
Yeah, no, like basically I wanted to know more specifically what was the thing, what excited you about engineering. Was it like a particular project? Was it a case of like you went, oh yeah, I saw like this particular, like for example, this whole system, this engineering system, and I was like, yeah, that was the thing where I knew.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to give a bit of background, because from my experience, I've had many conversations where people don't know how broad engineering is. So what I would say was my interest was looking at the transportation systems. I'm based in London, where everyone uses public transport, whether you're wealthy, whether you're young, whether you're a grandparent, like everyone uses public transport in London. And a big part of that is the railway network. So I was lucky enough to have a work experience placement when I was 16, the year I was doing my GCSE exams. And I was based at a construction project management company. And this company was working on some of the railways projects across London, working with Transport for London. And that's when I realized how much work goes into actually constructing new train lines, but also maintaining existing ones. I think the London subway system is the oldest of its kind in the whole world, and it requires a lot of maintenance. As people know, there's always sort of engineering works, that's what they say, that are causing delays and stuff. But this work is important because that's how it makes sure that everything is running smoothly, running safely, which is very important, and getting people from A to B. So yeah, when I found out that there were so many different jobs involved, including civil engineers, and that's what really sparked my interest when I was a teenager.
Yeah, I've got to say, one of the things, when they were doing like the Crossrail implementation, one of the things that really fascinated me is that, like when they had the BBC documentary, is when they were basically getting the Crossrail line to go through Tottenham Court Road. So like, I don't know if you've seen it. Yeah, but I was like watching the documentary, I remembered when I walked through there and you could hear the noise of the actual drill boring through, and you're like going, oh my God. It was like trying to thread a thread through an eye of a needle, which had like multiple trains going around it. It was quite mental. I've got to say, it was very exciting stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Crossrail project is a great example of a ginormous project that I think everyone in the industry has had one hand in one tiny part of it. And the new rail line going east to west through London, and it's ginormous. And when it opens, when it eventually is finished and opens, whenever that is, it's had some minor delays. So
2020, like 2030.
Well, it will benefit a lot of people. A lot of people will end up using that route for their commute, to visit their family, whether they live along those that line or not. I do think the TV show kind of dramatized it slightly. I wouldn't say it's exactly like putting a thread through a needle, but there is a lot of stuff underground in London, a huge amount of stuff. Some of it dating back to Roman times, where they were digging the route for Crossrail. They also found a Black Plague sort of burial ground, so a whole bunch of skeletons. And there's so many existing train lines that run at different depths and all sort of wiggle around each other. It's very difficult to sort of plan a route and make sure that you can do it safely, all while all the other lines are running. There's people using the roads, and there's like very expensive and old buildings above ground that you can't like even move slightly because they might all crack.
I would hate to see something go wrong under the Shard. That would be like, oh.
Imagine. That's like the Houses of Parliament or something. Something that's irreplaceable.
Yeah, I think there's some people who, like, if something bad happened to the
maybe
Houses of Parliament, but that might be like, it's like, I'm just waving from the other side. Bye-bye. Oh, no, but another thing with regards to tunneling is there was this super sewer we've got, like, I don't know if you know about that, a big ring sewer going
Um,
around London, which was, I think it's now active, but yeah.
yeah, that's also something that's been a huge piece of work, and they do have some similarities. So the sewage system in the UK, in London, some would say is quite outdated, particularly for the large population that we have in London now, which is getting bigger by the
Yeah.
day. So they have a new super sewer, is what they're calling it, which I think is a great name to try to make a slightly not very glamorous project sound better. I call it Tideway, sort of within the field, we call it Tideway. That's a company that is doing it. And
Well,
it was a civil engineer from, I think, the Victorian times called, I'm going to get the pronunciation wrong, but Basil Gates or something, that he designed the old existing London Victorian sewers.
yes. Yeah, no. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. So with regards to this, like, this is like, the reason why I say, yeah, like, yeah, a high flying busy beaver, like, you have basically the UO, like Manchester, I imagine that's University of Manchester, social responsibility medal winner. What?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. How did you like get involved in that? How did you get the
That
award?
was an award that I won last year. Well, actually, this time last year, actually, in May,
Happier times
which
when we could
was,
go outside.
yeah, it was completely different times, um, which was particularly amazing. So that social responsibility medal came with an award that I won for being their alumni volunteer of the year.
Mm.
And that was particularly meaningful for me to win that award, because when I was a student, I had been a runner-up for the student volunteer of the year back in, I think, 2015, which was, it was kind of nice because it kind of came full circle. But I'm really passionate about volunteering, and I think everyone who could, and a lot of people do, give up their time and skills and expertise. Everyone has a field of expertise to volunteer.
Mm.
Um, a big part of my work, which I won that award for, was some time that I spent volunteering overseas.
Ah.
So a couple of years back, I spent just under 6 months volunteering overseas. And you mentioned a team leader role. That
Yeah.
was something that I did for 10 weeks in Togo in West Africa. I was based in the capital city of Lomé, working with the YMCA there. So the YMCA, the big global youth movement.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I volunteered overseas. Don't want to. This could be a whole other topic as well. So yeah, that was sort of largely what I was awarded that medal for, which is amazing. Never had that sort of award or prize before, and it was really fulfilling to be recognised, particularly by my old university, where I still have many links.
Okay, that's great. So while you're over in Togo, like, what type of volunteering were you doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually did 2 voluntary placements. If I start from the first one, which
Yeah.
was in Zambia in Southern Africa, and then I'll go on to Togo. So the first one, they were both part of the ICS program, which some people listening might be familiar with if they're based in the UK. ICS stands for International Citizen Service. It's the
Mm.
government-funded scheme that gets people from the UK volunteering overseas, working with local communities on a whole range of different projects. So it could be something to do with health, something to do with entrepreneurship, local young people. It could be to do with water and sanitation, and further projects. So when I was in Zambia, I was based again in the capital city, Lusaka, and we worked to support local startup businesses. So working with local entrepreneurs to support their operations and to support their growth. I learned a huge amount in this time, and it was really fantastic. Actually, I was hoping to go back to Zambia later this year. Not sure 100% if that's going to happen now, but my flights are booked. So fingers crossed. Yeah, exactly. Fingers crossed, and we'll just have to see how that goes. Yeah, so I spent 3 months in Zambia back in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
And following that, I enjoyed it so much that I instantly, as soon as I came back and as soon as I turned old enough to apply for the team leader position, I applied for it right away, and then went to Togo on the same scheme, so a similar placement but with a different charity. And this time I was working and leading a team of both British and local Togolese volunteers, all young people, to deliver projects for the local young people. So working with local communities, with the existing YMCA Youth Centre. And it was probably the most stressful time in my life, if I can say that. I think that would be accurate. It was extremely stressful. Yes, we all go in with different expectations, and I was really, really lucky to be blessed with a team who were there for the right reasons. They wanted to work hard and have an impact, and to really volunteer, not for their own benefit, but to benefit the local community. So we arrived and we were all like powered up and ready to go. During the time that we were there was a period of civil unrest in the city, which meant that we couldn't do our project work as we had expected, which I completely understand. It was for our own safety to keep us inside, off the streets, and away from any sort of areas where there were unrest. And that was frustrating for a lot of my team members, particularly because they were really hyped up to work hard and make a change and to contribute something while they were there. And so there was a lot of frustration, and then there was also lots of health problems and things that came up. And of course, when you're managing or leading a multicultural team, you can often have like cultural differences or communication problems with any team. So there were a number of different challenges that came up, but I'm really, really proud of how my team pulled through to build like a good team morale and like deliver the projects in the end, because that's ultimately what we wanted. We were there to deliver the project, and we were able to do that, despite the many obstacles that we were. So it was a stressful time, but also the most fulfilling. And when I think back to that time, I'm very, very grateful for my teammates and the opportunity to work on that project.
No, you know what? I'm glad you had a good team with you. I'm sorry that the civil unrest like put a dampener on like your eventual sort of plans. But but what kind of inspired you to like go and volunteer? Excuse me. What inspired you to go and volunteer? Because like I know like I've had many a friend who's done a gap year and stuff like this. Like I've got my lady, she's gone over to Nepal to build like huts and stuff. But while you're sort of getting out of university type things, like doing that, what made you go, hey, you know what? I want to go to Togo or Zambia?
I guess ultimately it was down to feeling like I could do more. So again, expectations versus reality. Taking it back to when I was at university, I was 100% like ticking all the boxes. So I was ticking all the boxes that for my mum's expectations, basically, like get the good grades, go to the uni, graduate uni, get the big job, the one that like looks good and she can brag about with her mates.
I'm proud of you, baby. I'm proud of you.
Well, if I ever heard those words come out of her mouth, I'd probably faint. But I like to think she is secretly proud of me.
Sorry.
No.
Okay. So it was just like you're doing, like you did it so you could do more than just box ticking. So I take it. So
yeah, I guess so. When I started working, I was in a large organization and realized that sort of all of my work during my younger years was leading up to this job. And I was thinking, right, I'm a very small fish in a very, very big pond. And I think a lot of people can relate to that, some of the ginormous organizations that we have now. And I really started to realize that I was such a small cog in this huge machine, and actually that's not very motivating. Well, it certainly wasn't for me, because I felt like the impact that I have within this organization is very, very small. It's important, you need all the cogs in the machine, but it is small. And that's when I started thinking, I can do more and add more value to something in the world. I wasn't sure exactly what it was at that time.
I see. So going volunteering, being more than the sum of your parts, seeing if you could
Hmm.
like take up the mantle. So with all of this, like did this like I see like I see on your bio like you have traveled to over 30 countries. Did that sort of kick that off, or is it a case of you went, okay, I've ticked all the boxes, I volunteered, now let me see the world, or was it let me see the world while you're going on?
There wasn't any sort of one big trip where I suddenly visited a lot of countries. And I know that I'm very, very lucky to, it's a huge privilege to be able to
Mm,
say that I've traveled to different places. And I think a big part of that for me is sort of who I surround myself with. So I surround myself with people who maybe don't have the same background as me. They didn't grow up near me, or they're not of the
hmm
same ethnicity. And through that, I learned a lot about different cultures, and also had the opportunity to visit them in their like home cities and home countries. And I think it's really key to sort of embrace different cultures where you can. Then you start to realize that the way that we've always done things isn't necessarily the only way. And then you also recognize how many similarities we have with communities which we might assume are completely different from us. And we're all like humans at the end of the day, with the same needs, with the same care for our family, for example, even if on the surface, in the media, we might be portrayed as very, very different groups of people.
mm. No, like I agree. There is a sort of close, like human connection across the world. But put this way, what we're all going through right now, with regards to lockdown, it's not just one country. It's like the whole planet is on that sort of basis. Sweden, they're by themselves. They're happy, but you know what I mean. But it's always a shared connection. It's always that sort of shared link, which I think is important. And I think before the lockdown, many people would sort of overlook that. But while they're in that sort of like space of isolation where they can't actually have that connection with family, friends, and stuff like this, I think there's more and more like, I understand what I missed. I don't know about you, but that's how I like see it.
Yeah, definitely. I'm really lucky to be quarantining or locked in. I like to use the word lock in because it sounds more positive. Yeah, I'm with my family members. I'm all about keep trying to keep the positivity. I think that's the only thing we can do. Be grateful for our situation. It's not easy,
Mm,
and I don't like the sort of phrase of "we're all in this together." I feel like that's limiting because everyone has different experiences.
mm,
But I'm very lucky to be with my family. I've never appreciated the time with them more, to be honest. And it is difficult to be apart from other people who maybe are quarantining alone. Many of my
mm.
friends are alone, which coming up to 2 months can't be easy. And also with extended family members, it's hard to be apart.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. With regards to your travels, what place, how can I say, what was one of the most inspiring places you went, would you say?
Mm, I guess different trips are inspiring for different reasons. So somewhere which is always very close to my heart is Malaysia. So my mum's actually from Malaysia and she immigrated to the UK where I'm based now before
Yeah.
I was born. I visited Malaysia quite a few times when I was growing up, and when I was there I was always like visiting family, so pretty much just spending time with my cousins, my aunts, my grandmom, etc. And it wasn't until I was an adult and had the opportunity to visit Malaysia with some friends who were from there that
Mm,
I really got to experience more of the country actually. So I got to visit different places and also have more opportunity to try different parts of the cuisine and the culture. And that really opened my eyes because obviously I appreciated the times that I was spending with my extended family there. But I actually learned a lot more from the culture from a sort of an outsider's point of view, visiting the country as a tourist. And I hope to go back and visit again, and this time mixing in sort of both sides. So both doing some of the more touristy sightseeing, trying different cuisine stuff, and then also spending quality time with family. And yeah, so that's somewhere which is always very meaningful for me. And I guess it's inspirational because it really helped me with my own identity and
mhm.
my own interests.
Yeah, I like the way when you said the word cuisine, your face lit up a little bit. It was like, just like
The food in Malaysia is banging.
you was like banging. I like it. I like it. You was like, you took yourself back there, like, yeah, wow, look at you. Brilliant. I was like-
No,
so
it's great.
excellent. So with that, like, so this is the thing. How did you get onto the sort of a motivational speaking side of things with regards to yourself? It's quite a sort of, how can I say, a jump, like, yeah, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, definitely. And it actually wasn't something that I'd ever planned out. If you had met me when I was a secondary school student, you would never have expected that I would become a motivational speaker. I was very much the student who was quite shy and awkward and kept my head down, and definitely one of the most quiet students within my whole class. And I guess my confidence started growing when I was at university and started sharing my path into my field, so my field of engineering, with young people. And yeah, that gave me a lot of confidence because I was recognizing that I could share something which the students hadn't experienced but would perhaps be going through in the next couple of years. And that continued when I entered the workplace as well. And I still continue to speak to university students about some of the parts of like job applications, entering the working world and trying to do the best that you can after graduation is very intimidating. It's very nerve-wracking, and there is a huge amount of pressure on university students to have sort of someone else's definition of success after they graduate, which is not easy. It's tough. So it's all something that I fell into. I started getting asked to speak on panels or perhaps speak at the start of another event that I was already attending. And I'm grateful for these opportunities, not least because of all the amazing people I get to meet after I speak, which is the most fulfilling.
Yeah, no, like this is the thing. I think too many people sometimes like get caught up with, how can I say, a full sense of what success or like what success is or what they should be doing in their lives to chase that form of success. Like basically it's like, oh, I got to have the big house, or I got to have the fancy car, watch, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes on the material things. And sometimes it's like, yeah, I've got to really sort of do my 80 hours a week, like killing themselves in a job which they might not want to be doing, or they just been talked into doing by other parties. Like trying to sort of narrow that down and find individual happiness might sometimes be a little bit too vague to say that, but get them more focused on what would bring them more satisfaction to their lives. It's quite tricky. Anyone who can help do that, get that focus on, is a good thing in my black book. I could have used.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it is individual. I mean, everyone needs to look into themselves and actually think, what do I actually want? What is my definition of success? If that is happiness, then what actually does make me happy? And that's very different for different people. So yeah, I think it is individual, but we spend so much of our time looking to what other people are doing, trying to live up to other people's sometimes unachievable expectations. And also we love comparing ourselves to other people. That could be in anything. And with things like social media, Instagram, it's easier than ever to compare.
Yes, I've got to say, there's times when I look at social media as the devil itself, because like when you like when you see the images and pictures of some people, like, oh, I'm living my most, like, my best life, and you're like, yeah, it's always sort of like a porcelain layer in my sort of view. Scratch past the like surface, then you start to see what really is going on. Hopefully positive things, but not all the time.
Yeah.
The old saying of brighter the picture, darker the negative.
Oh, I haven't heard that one before.
Yes, you see, basically, like back in the day when it was all about film cameras, yeah, it was like you had to have that. Brighter the picture, darker the negative. In our digital world, unfortunately, yeah, it doesn't carry all the time. But yeah, but
that's a really great phrase, and I think that's a really good way to sort of, it's particularly on social media, a lot of people will compare their normal everyday, sometimes their worst days, with other people's highlight reels. And we know that we do that as well. We know that we only put on, you know, the best parts of your life on social media. So why don't we recognize that other people are also doing the same, and we really let it can get to us, because we are comparing our, you know, average day to someone else's, the highlight of their week.
Yeah.
So that's a great phrase for me to keep in mind as well going forward.
No, please use it to your heart's content. I don't have any ownership to it at all. So with that, like, you draw, like, did you manage to, like, how long were you doing motivational speaking before you sort of got on to TED, which I've got to say, yeah.
Oh gosh, there wasn't actually any point where I was like, I'm being a motivational speaker from now on. So
Yeah.
casting my mind back to when it actually started is difficult, because the inception point, I only actually recognize it sort of with hindsight. And I guess it does go back to when I was volunteering, and that's one of the skills that I picked up through volunteering that I'm very, very grateful for. And also a benefit that I really like to push when I'm recruiting and motivating or encouraging people to volunteer themselves, because it's not just about you giving up your valuable free time, but yeah, you do gain things from it as well. You develop skills, you gain opportunities, and you meet people. That's not necessarily the number one reason to volunteer, but it's a secondary benefit that we should all be recognizing. My opportunity with TED came up when I was I stayed involved with the YMCA movement after volunteering in the YMCA in Togo.
Yeah.
And they were organizing a huge event in London actually last year. So in 2019, it was called YMCA 175, and it was to commemorate the 175th year of the YMCA as the largest youth movement across the world. And they had people from pretty much every country in the world, probably like 180 countries, I would say, descend onto the Excel Centre in London, which was mad. It was wild. It was absolutely nuts and so invigorating, actually. So the part of the YMCA movement that I'm involved with, someone from that charity nominated me as a youth voice or a youth leader.
Yeah.
And because they are a youth movement, they want to make sure that young people are actually at the center of it. They're not just there getting told what to do, but they're actually defining the change that the movement is making, which I think is so important, particularly because young people are actually the ones who recognize where the problems are and what they want to fix, what they want to change, and have the skills to make that change as well. So we should always give young people respect, people younger than me as well.
Yes. Kid comes up next to you. I am the future.
Like, they really are.
Like, I am the future. Brilliant. So with this, you decided to, like, how long have you had your podcast, Yellow Bee Pod? How long have you had that going for now?
It's almost brand new. So I launched this month at the start of May 2020. It's brand new. Thank you. It's exciting to join this podcasting world. I can see why people like it so much.
Ah, excellent. So what made you decide to start a podcast of all things at this present time?
I've been a listener of podcasts for a long time, and it is an idea I've had for a while. So I'm kind of grateful to the lockdown situation for finally driving me to actually start it and make my dreams come true.
It's like, yes, thank you. Like, I don't know if you're part of the furlough army out there at this present time, but yeah.
No, I'm not, but I do still have more free time than I did before, which is not what everyone has, but that's my current situation. And yeah, I was able to start this podcast. A big part of what I've been thinking about in the last couple of years, aside from my day job and my volunteering commitments, is about my own ethnic identity. So I'm British born Chinese, and there's a significant British Chinese community, but I was sort of looking for more content. And what I kept finding was that I ended up listening to things from America, things from Australia, where there is a larger East Asian population. And I was looking for something here in the UK. So instead of just waiting for someone else to do it, I figured I should just actually just do it myself.
Yeah.
And it's been really, really great so far. I think I'm going to hit 500 listens today, which is exciting because I launched 2 weeks ago, which is really, really thrilling. I'm glad that people are tuning in. And the aim of the podcast is to sort of highlight some of the amazing people from different Asian descent that I know who don't necessarily live in their homeland, focusing specifically on people who have heritage from East and Southeast Asia. So that includes countries like China, Japan, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, etc., and many more.
Well, yeah, like I've got to say, I think you're going to have quite a growing audience for many of people from that community and like further afield. But I'd like to touch on what some of you said with regards to much of the sort of voice or narrative when it comes to sort of different ethnic groups around the world. I do understand where you're coming from when you say it's sort of more American centric and Australian centric, like especially when it's American side of things, because generally they have the louder voice than most, and it is quite hard to find sort of content what relates to anyone who might be a immigrant from another country or first or second generation immigrant from another country to get that content. So it is a challenge to say the least. So yeah, with regards to like the podcast, is it a case of you're bringing on guests to the podcast, or is it just talking about your like personal experiences or others?
It's going to be a mix of both. So I will be sharing some of my own experiences, and I also have a really exciting list of guests coming up. So since I'm still new to this, I'm absolutely thrilled that people are keen, firstly, to listen. Turns out I wasn't the only one looking for content like this. And secondly, to be featured. So I've got a range of people from backgrounds in theatre, in politics, in comedy, talking about different topics that just affect these communities. And I definitely say communities plural, because there isn't just one Asian experience or one Asian community, even if you're talking about London or the UK. It's really varied, and I want to get as many different voices as I can featured, because everyone does have that different unique experience, and we can share our experiences, hopefully learn something from each other, and also find areas that we can relate on. I love talking and hearing from listeners actually who say that some of my earlier episodes have really resonated with them, particularly because I'm sure you can attest to this as well. We don't see that many East or Southeast Asian people on mainstream media. So if you're looking at TV, movies, etc., there are very, very few. And actually some of the ones that we do see are playing stereotypical roles which are not really representative of real people.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yes, it always falls into some like either a stereotype or basically a strict sort of this is what it is, as I don't right. For like with regards to like China or like any of the sort of Far East, it'll be like martial art film. Yeah, come on.
Yeah, classic.
It's like, come on, we do more than just do that. That we've like rich past, rich heritage. It's not just about just that. Or with like regards to black community, like gangland film. No.
Oh yeah, that must be really frustrating to see.
It's a case of sometimes like because I'm like a child of the 70s and 80s. I've seen how it's changed. Let's just say it's got better over the course of time. And I know there's some people who want it to like to be even more so, but it's a case of each 10 years which go by, it gets a little bit better. And like I got to say, what it is now, it's better than what it was before, but there is still sometimes you still see the patterns of where it's just caught in this loop where you're like going, come on guys, like you could do better than this. And like
yeah, it's true.
Mm.
Well, I think it's important to recognize the progress. It's good that it's better than it was before. But if you're already starting from a disappointing place, we should always be pushing for more representation and more stories to be told, stories that actually represent the wide range of experiences in the community and also are inclusive of people who work in media fields at all stages. So not only having, for example, for my group, Chinese people on screen, but then also Chinese people writing the stories, Chinese people directing it, etc. What I don't want to see is the same writers writing stories about what they think the Chinese experience would be. I'm just using my ethnicity as one example.
Yeah, but like this is the thing. It's going to take a lot of work, and like that's the whole point. I think there are people asking for change, like right now, but they're not actually getting behind the work, what needs to be done. Look, as I said, it's got easier in many regards, but it still has to be a lot of work needs to go into it.
Mm-hmm.
With regards to the film, television industry, and maybe like quite a lot of media, rather than sort of like, okay, like putting generic crap out there to be consumed, work on the quality, get that up. So therefore, when, like, don't get me wrong, I do love myself like a crappy like popcorn movie. It
Yeah.
it goes down well, but I do love my like steak or something richer, better. And I think they need to work on doing that first, get the quality up. And then like when that happens, you can then start driving more talent through there, because the expectations will be up there and the achievements will be up there, which will just
Mm-hmm.
lead to more people getting involved and seeking out that excellence. Perfection doesn't exist, but you can always strive for excellence. That means coming in, day out, time and time again, making yourself better. And when you're pursuing excellence, it's hard work, dedication, always pushing forward. And people need to get on that. If they can't, then you've got to be prepared to see, like, reap the rewards of your work ethic. And like, if that's not there, don't cry about it. Be better.
Yeah, it's true. And I think that's why I ended up starting the podcast myself. I shouldn't be waiting for anyone else to do it. And we do live in a world now where people have the tools to create something from home if they wanted to. They don't need to rely on the existing large institution to provide them with that platform. Having said that, I also don't want it to be a case of ethnic minority communities always fighting and trying to bash down a ginormous wall. The people on the other side who are already in the field should also be sort of opening the doors for the voices that aren't currently represented, and that could be from a whole range of different protected characteristics.
Yeah, no, like this is a thing. When you look at anybody who like from an ethnic background who's like made it really big, and when you look at those people, they've made it really big. It's not a case of they just stick to like one demographic. They like go for the broad appeal. They work towards the excellence. And like this is the thing with regards to anyone who's starting a YouTube channel, anyone who's starting a TikTok account, anyone starting an Instagram account, like
Yep.
to doing podcasts or basically doing more traditional media, I would say they need to really do focus on that excellence so they can have that broad appeal. And you might hear people that are going, oh, you're selling out. No, it's not about selling out. It's about helping as many people as possible. Might be for your own community, might be from other like communities, and help raise everyone up rather than a narrow like minority.
Yeah, I guess that is key. And if you want a large audience, then yeah, you always have to consider and be flexible in terms of what your target audience is. And it's good to find your niche, but then being too restricted is also damaging.
Mm, mm. Indeed, indeed. So, with regards to people you had on guests so far, how many people have you had on guests so far?
At the time of recording, I have 4 episodes out. I don't have a guest in every single one, but that's where we're at today, from as of today, mid-May. I've got a whole bunch of episodes recorded, actually like more than 10, which is
Okay.
amazing. And I'll be putting those out over the next couple of weeks. We're going to be covering topics including Asian food, comedy and the world of politics, some of the things that I've already mentioned before in our conversation. It's really exciting because I'm just sort of scraping the surface, actually. It's absolutely, I've only spoken to just a few people out of the very many who are doing incredible things and have great stories to share from across the communities.
Perfect. With regards to sort of subject matter entertainment, what area of entertainment would you focus on with your podcast? You mentioned comedy. Is it just going to be that, or is it going to be a little bit more deeper up on the entertainment side of things?
There's going to be a whole range of different people, but I recognize that everyone has different interests and fields of expertise and experiences that they want to share. I'm not going to go out and say it's a comedy podcast, but it's definitely a light-hearted one, even when we're talking about more serious topics. So I really want it to be a chatty style podcast, kind of like the conversation we're having here, because that's the kind of podcast that I enjoy listening to as a listener as well.
Okay, that's great. I'm liking that. Now, would there be what book would you recommend someone to read, or like documentary or something like that over the next few, I don't know how long lockdown's going to last for, over the next month or so? What would you say has been a really good read, or something you watched?
Oh, there's a huge amount. So I'm currently watching a new American documentary film series called Asian Americans. They're celebrating their Asian American and Pacific Islanders History or Heritage Month. It gets called different things, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
So they're celebrating that in the month of May. So they've got a huge amount of content coming out, including this documentary series, which looks at some of the communities in different parts of America, including immigrants from lots of different Asian countries. And something that has really surprised me from that is how far back the history goes. People still talk about these immigrant populations in America as something new, but they've been there for more than 100 years, actually. And yeah, I'm learning a lot from that, which I think is really interesting. I also have a whole range of Netflix recommendations if you want that.
Put it this way, I was talking to Lillian earlier, and she was like, yes. I was like, yes. She was, yeah, anime is my thing. And she looked at me with a sort of guilty look of like, anime. So just like, okay. I was like, oh, right. I was just like, yes, 7 deadly sins. Don't judge me. I was like, okay. So at this moment in time, apart from Tiger King, which took the world by storm, what is the thing you're watching on Netflix at this present time?
There's quite a few recommendations that have come out on Netflix earlier this year that sort of represent the Asian diaspora communities. So Asian diaspora being people from Asian descent who don't necessarily live in their homeland anymore. Yeah. Which I think is really fantastic, because Netflix is finally representing some of these stories that have always existed. I don't know, I've got something for people. I've got a recommendation for people who like anything. So if you're looking for like a fun teen movie, like a coming of age story, you could watch a movie called The Half of It. That's new to Netflix last month. And then there's also To All the Boys I've Loved Before, along the same lines. I think Netflix, they love doing these like high school dramas and movies, and they do it really well.
Oh, loving it. Let me see. What have I been watching? I've been watching a series called Trial by Media, documentary series, which is just come on Netflix, and like it's just going through, how can I say, a number of different media, like where the media's either being the person, like being the influence which has manipulated a trial, or they've been influenced or been manipulated to make the trial go one way or the other.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Particularly with the cancel culture that we have now. What's the name of that? I'll be interested to check it out.
Trial by Media. So like, I'm 3 episodes in, and it's like, yeah, I got to say, it's quite heavy.
Trial by Media. I'll have to check it out. Yeah, I'm not really a big fan of watching stuff that's quite serious or heavy or scary, or I'm not a big fan of thrillers. But I like watching I think Netflix have great stand-up comedies. Stand-up, what do they call them? Specials.
Yes.
By a range of different comedians, including some of Asian descent. So if people don't feel like they hear some of the Asian diaspora voices, you're not looking hard enough. Just go on Netflix. Ronnie Cheng, Ali Wong, Hassan Minhaj. There's a whole range of amazing comedians available on Netflix.
Loving it, loving it. Brilliant. Oh, we are almost like, yes. Yeah. It's like, yeah. Could you it's been an hour. Would you be able to tell people where they could find you on the realms of social media and such?
Yep, absolutely. So you've already mentioned my podcast. You can listen to us on Spotify or wherever you're listening to this one. If you search up Yellow Bee Pod, bee as in a buzzy bee, and that's actually what my friends used to call me. Not a busy beaver, but a busy bee. So that's why that's where the name of my podcast comes from, Yellow Bee Pod. And let's just say that's the handle on Instagram and Twitter as well. So come and check us out. If you're interested in what I do with my work and volunteer work, whether that's with STEM, volunteering overseas, or motivational speaking, you can find my personal Twitter at Natalie G Cheung. So the letter G, and then my surname is spelled Cheung.
Excellent. What I'll do, I'll put this in the episode notes in the description below. So yes, please click on the links, get connected, and yes, please listen to Yellow Bee Podcast. And yeah, let's see what we can do to make you grow. But yes, I like to say,
that's very kind.
Oh, no problem at all. I like to say thank you today, Natalie, for coming on to the podcast. It's touched me. It's made me smile.
It's been a delight. Love the energy as well. I think that's always good for a podcast, to be upbeat, to be energetic. Obviously there are different styles of podcasts for different moods and different listeners, but this is the style that I like.
Excellent. I shall send you the check in the mail. It might take a little bit of time because I'm going to send it slow mail. But Natalie, I say thank you very much for coming on. I like to say thank you to all my friends out there, all my life warriors out there, for listening to the show. You've been exceptional, one and all. I say goodbye. Stay safe, stay well, be awesome, be fantastic, be amazing, be all the positive bees you can be in this world, and then some. Anyway, have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.